How you doing? Welcome to another video. Today, I'm going to talk about 6 warning signs of alcohol brain damage. Now, first of all, I'm going to give you the warning signs straight off. Then I'm going to talk about some of the real life examples of how this can affect your life directly. And then I'm going to finish up with how alcohol related brain damage can affect you in ways that you never thought about, ways that I definitely never thought about anyway. I'll give you the warning signs first. So number one is impaired ability to learn things. Number two is to expect some personality changes. Number three, problems with memory. Number four, difficulty with clear and logical thinking, right? So we're talking about anything that you do that requires planning, organizing, common sense, judgment, anything which involves social skills, communication between other people. Number five is problems with your balance. And number six is problems with initiative or spontaneity. So alcohol-related brain damage, it doesn't always get worse over time. This is just a caveat that I want to give you, right? That it's not like other causes of dementia, such as Alzheimer's, which is a progressive disease. If a person with alcohol-related brain damage stops drinking and they receive good support, right, and good sort of coaching about what to do now to not to increase the risk or to increase the damage to themselves, then the chances are that they can make a full or partial recovery. Okay, so just because you might have a little bit of brain damage, you might know somebody who has that, it's not the end of the story. I mean, sometimes it is, unfortunately, but not always. So let's look at the symptoms again. Simplistic but a useful, I think, analogy is that when you drink alcohol over a long period of time, especially, alcohol gets into your brain and it batters at the same spots over and over again. Like I said, it's just a useful analogy just to think about. Think about it like a hammer battering at the same nail head over and over again. Eventually, these things are going to get stuck, or they're going to break, or they're going to crumple. They're not going to work anymore, right? They're not going to function as they used to, which is about the same thing, right? So first of all the symptoms of drunkenness, right? You're talking about memory problems, personality change, even if it's in the moment, logical thinking and common sense going out the window. You're not thinking judgmentally anymore, with good judgment. Your social skills, even though people drink for social reasons, balance, slurred speech, these are all things that happen when you drink in the moment, right? As a direct consequence. And my point is that these are a precursor of the things that are to come, right? I hear a lot of talk about people fine-tuning their brain in the fitness world now. It's a big, you know yourself, you can't turn on YouTube without somebody talking about eating the right phytonutrients, getting the next level exercise, putting your brain through regular drills to get it shaped up, crosswords or Sudoku or whatever it is, whatever mental gymnastics you're going to put your brain through. These are things that people are doing in order to protect their brain from diseases like Alzheimer's and things like that. And then these people go home in the evening or at the weekend, and they basically hit themselves over the head with a chemical hammer, right? And they keep pounding away until they can't speak properly, they can't think properly, they can't stand up straight anymore, and they're reduced to the state of a child, right? So just think about it from that perspective. Just think about one time that you're drinking, and you're drinking heavily, and this is what you go through. Now, to break down the long-term symptoms and what that means to you, I look at my life like I want it to be the best life that it can be, right? I look at myself like I want to be the best version of myself, not in comparison to anybody else, only in comparison to myself, to my yester self, to the person I was yesterday, right? If you've got any aspirations towards that kind of thinking or that kind of life, then this type of damage you should think about it as catastrophic, right? This is the worst thing for me, would be brain damage. The worst thing. Think about the second and the third order consequences, not just of what you're doing, the consequences of what you're doing right now, but the second and third order consequences of any brain damage, especially one that you've caused to yourself. The dysfunction to your life. This has a rolling affect a snowballing effect towards the other people around you, your wife, your husband, your children, in your job, your career, to your friends, in every area of your life that matters to you, right? Your impaired ability to learn things. We're learning organisms. It's what we do as human beings. It's what distinguishes us from every other animal on the planet. Our ability to think deeply about things, to think up fictions in our minds, to figure out the complex and complicated problems, and to come up with viable, fantastic solutions, not only for ourselves, but for the people that are around us. But let's just stick with ourselves for the time being and the damage that we're causing to ourselves and to our lives. So now you have this deliberately, consciously, suicidally, you've been putting this toxin into your body over time, over a long period of time. For me, it was over 30 years of doing this, which impairs your ability to learn in the short term and can permanently reduce your ability to learn in the long term. Now, I'm saying this because I have this experience of myself over and over and over again, right? Where you know what it does to you. Every time you're staggering around and you can't talk straight and you're talking shit and you're walking like you've got brain damage. Every time that happens to you, every time you get up in the morning and you feel the hangover, you feel the results of what you've done to yourself the night before. You feel every ache and pain because of the knocks that you've taken because of your drinking and because you're no longer numbed through it. You feel that head, which is like it's wrapped in a wet towel, that you can't think straight. All of that is your body saying, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Every time you do that. So it's not as if we don't know this is happening. Now, our problem is extrapolating the short term into the long term. Right? So when you take your like I say, you're impairing your ability to learn in the short term, and that's going to permanently affect, I think, and reduce your ability to learn in the long term. This is about the devastation for you and your life, and like I said, living this one and only life that you ever have in the best possible way that you can through your own means. And the flip side of that, right? And I have to give you a flip side because I haven't drank in the last 9 years. The flip side of that is that my ability to learn, and I can only go from my own experience, right? I can give you anecdotal evidence from so many different people that I coach, people that have gone through our program. I can show you lots and lots of emails that I've got over the years that will support this. My ability to learn, once I stopped deluding myself and finally stopped poisoning myself, has been nothing short of personally amazing to me. Somebody else might look at it and go, whatever, but personally amazing to me in my life. I've never been as sharp as I am today, right? I'm 56 years of age, 10 years after or 9 years after I stopped drinking alcohol. Go back to this channel, right? Go back to the library on this channel and just, you'll see there's you can see the first video that I ever did and have a look at that. Watch the first video and you'll see what I'm talking about just directly by listening to me and talking to me. I look at myself and I think, so personality changes is the next part that we were looking at, the next sort of sign. Well, first of all, what personality changes are we talking about here? We're not talking about good ones, that's for sure. We're not talking about, well, when you get brain damage, that all of a sudden your personality takes an upward curve, and everyone goes, oh, what a nice fella that fella is now. We're talking about changes that are driven by and fueled by stupid choices, right? And a particular stupid choice of putting a toxin into your body time and time and time again. And these stupid choices very seldom have good outcomes, notwithstanding the fact that you're putting into your body and the outcome that's happening inside your mind. Even from the perspective of that instant gratification mindset, getting what you can now and, blow the consequences of what's going to happen in the future. This is not a good short-term strategy. It's not even a good short-term strategy. It's definitely not a good long-term strategy. Besides all the brain damage that's going to happen to you, or that can happen to you. Usually when somebody talks about personality changes in the sense of brain damage, alcohol-related brain damage, we're talking about this along the lines of something along the lines of Jekyll and Hyde, that kind of thing, but a really pathetic version of that story. You're not getting the strength or the determination of Hyde, even though it's a negative determination. It's still there, and he's a strong bloke. You're just getting the weakness and the spinelessness. And each drink takes you a bit further and further away from that sort of nobility that Jekyll espoused, from that personal, noble leaning that I think every human being has, that puts them down towards that weakness and that patheticness. When I think back to myself as a drinker, to my thoughts, to my actions and my behaviors, particularly when I was drunk, but in general, to my outlook in life outside of drinking, to the way I looked at life and the way that alcohol altered the framework through which I looked at life. If I had to choose a word, one single word that would define who I was, that word would be pathetic, right? It comes from a Greek word, pathos, meaning suffering, a suffering experience or a suffering emotion. And the term usually refers to the emotion produced by tragedy or by a depiction of tragedy. And that's what my life was. I think that's what anyone's life is who is solely focused, especially on a drug, a chemical thing that they're taking into the body over and over. They're looking at their happiness through the drug, and they're looking more and more that their life gets revolved around this drug. And that is tragedy. It's a tragedy of, or it was in my space, in everyone's perspective, it's a tragedy of your own making, which is, I think, the modern condition. Look around at how many different addictions there are possible right now. And again, to show you what can be done when you get a handle on this, when you make the decision to stop putting this poison into your body for whatever reason. For me personally, I choose to think about myself, especially now that I'm outside of it. It's easier. I don't understand this, when you're right there and you're stopping, or before you've stopped or just after you've stopped, it's very difficult to sort of step back and to look at yourself and to really see yourself in any other way than than what you are. But I look back at myself and the way that I was acting, and I see a 46-year-old child. Like I said, go back to that first video and have a look at it. And that's just what you can see. I mean, from me personally, and the way that I was thinking, the way I was acting, the way I was trying to hide my actions, and my personality has changed enormously. And it's a step by step, little by little change. It's hard thing to quantify. It's a hard thing to do, to change your life like that, to change your personality in such a big way, an unbelievably hard thing to do, to take responsibility for your own life without a crutch, without this crutch that you've been so used to doing, or at least without such a devouring crutch that alcohol can be. We all need crutches every so often in life, no? But if you play with fire long enough, you're going to get burned, and sometimes badly. And like I said, again, go back and go to the YouTube channel, filter the videos until you see the oldest one, and you'll see that video. Just see the first couple of videos that I made, and you'll see the gradual improvement if you watch those first few videos. So I just want to take a pause here and talk about our quick start guide. We've got it's the quick start preparation guide. You can get it down below. It's absolutely free. It's less than an hour of a course, and it's designed to prepare you for the journey, whether your journey is starting out with drinking alcohol or going to the second 30 days, or whether you're 6 months into this, or whether you're starting out with something else and you want to, lose some weight, or to stop smoking, for instance. You can use the same mindsets. And it's designed to give you a perspective on where you are, to give you some clarity on where you are and where you're going to go. It's a good thing to have positive expectations, to really help you to understand that, to give you confidence, and to give you courage to step across that line. We've also got on habitsv2.com. You can see that up here. We've got our, this is our paid program, but there's a lot of daily videos there. There's in the first 6 weeks, we've got 2 videos a day, one in the morning, one in the evening. It's really to get you into that. There's sequenced videos, step-by-step videos to take you through this whole journey. Very positive community of people we've got over there. And that really does help the battle when you surround yourself with people who are actually lifting you up and who are heading in the right direction. You know, if you can get as many people as you can giving you a hand up, it's a lot better. We've got Zoom calls. We've got some group Zoom calls. We've got one-on-one Zooms. We've got strategy Zooms. And we've just got a massive library of very old videos. We've put up a lot more of our old videos now. So all that's there. So anyway, you can find that in www.habitsv2.com and get all the details over there. Now, the next step for this was problems with memory, right? So this is one of the saddest for me. You know, who are we if not our memories? You know, I remember not so long, maybe 3 or 4 months, I stopped drinking in January. It was probably around April of that year that I was cleaning out, and we came across this big box of photographs. And I knew they were there. It wasn't that I didn't know they were there. And it was, oh, look at that box of photographs. I didn't know. They were there. I picked them out. And it was the first time I'd looked at them when I was sober, since I stopped drinking alcohol. And I remember flicking through these photographs and just thinking how many of the events that took place in these photographs that I didn't remember, that I didn't actually remember the event. And that was the only thing that I had was that photograph. And to think that me back then, as a relatively young man still, I was still only 46, could have such a huge hole left in my life of things that I couldn't remember. And all because of alcohol, Not only were my memories, these were all the good times. You know, these weren't just random memories. You know, these were when, you know, back in the old days, when I'm talking about, you know, we didn't have smartphones where we could take 100 photographs of the same thing. You had you had a camera and you had 36 or 24 or whatever it was photographs in that, and you had to be very deliberate about what you took. So these were memories of all the good times in my life, right? So we're talking about memories. I'm talking about memories also from the perspective of you've got this common thing of memories, right? All the memories that you have, if you do something over and over again, and it doesn't matter with whom or where you do these things, if you do the same thing over and over again with the same people in the same places, that memory is going to become sort of connected to every other memory. It just become a big blob, right? There's nothing that distinguishes one memory from any other memory. So, like I said, not only were my memories of this kind, the ones that were melded into this giant mess, but the most important memories in my life, the celebrations, my son's birthdays, weddings, all kinds of celebrations, all the things the memories that are supposed to be there when you get older, that keep you smiling, that speak to you of the fulfilled life that you've led, right? All these memories were all killed at the inception because of what I was doing at that moment, which was pouring alcohol into my body and battering away at these things in my head, so that these memories were never even sunk there. But I think they were. I mean, I think they still get in there, which is something I'll talk about in a minute. But all I had to show for it was that image on the paper, or, you know, the disc or whatever it is. You know, if you nowadays your phone, that's all you've got to show for it. And the long-term damage can be even worse, I think. You know, one of the questions about people with memory problems that are associated with brain damage is how they can remember things that happened 10 years ago, but not 5 minutes ago. You know, and we've already covered that. You know, the stuff that happens 10 years ago to a drinker, you know, look how well that turned out. It didn't go too well, right? Those stuff that you want to remember because they were lost in the alcohol fog, you don't remember. So the 10 years is gone. And now imagine what it would be like in your life to not to be able to remember what you did 5 minutes ago. You know, how would you be able to how would you be able to cope with life? How much would you be able to do on your own? Just going to the store, just going down to the shops and trying to remember a couple of things that you need in the house. Maybe remembering where your house is. One of the reasons why people drink is because they want to be social. How social are you going to be when you can't hold up your end of a conversation for more than a couple of minutes? You can't remember what you said 5 minutes ago. I didn't notice my memory getting worse. And the story I told you about the box of photos happened after I stopped drinking alcohol. Like I said, it was 3 or 4 months afterwards. And I didn't see the connection while I was drinking. It's a typical case of not wanting to see and therefore not seeing, sticking your head in the sand because you don't want to see what's there right in front of your face. Like I said, when you're doing this brain damage over and over, your body is telling you, don't do this, stop doing this. It's giving you so many different warning signals, but we ignore it because we think it's normal. Now, it was only after I stopped drinking that I gradually started to see how much my memory had improved. And I'm talking about radical improvements, not just short term. And like I said, this is something that happened step by step. It wasn't something that I, first couple of days off drinking, I realized this is something that happened after quite a while of not drinking. And it wasn't just in the short term. Like I said, I started remembering things from years ago, I said to you a while ago that I don't think because you're doing these things, these memories are not going in, but I think they do go in, but it's a different circuit. And then the ones that are, it's just that your brain's function for bringing them back to the surface has been compromised. Now, I think if you're under a blackout, there's certain times when the memories are not going to go in. But, when you're talking about a birthday and celebrations and stuff like that, it's a very, you're gradually getting drunk. So there's memories that will go in that are not, unless your brain is truly damaged from that perspective. And then, you're screwed. But I still get these things coming back to the surface now, these memories from my old life. And I think, wow, I haven't thought about that in years, or I think, it's funny how the mind works. Yeah, when you get out of your own way, when you get out of your mind's way and you let it do its functioning without trying to kill it, like I said, again, it wasn't overnight. It was something that took time. It was something that I didn't cop onto until much later in this journey. But memory has such a huge part to play in not only what you remember from the past, your reminiscences of the times you look back and you smile and you go, oh, do you remember we did that? But also about what you do in the present, in constructing your own narrative about your future, constructing your own ideas and your dreams and your plans for the future. Memory has got a huge amount to do with that. So the difficulty with clear and logical thinking, this is the next thing that I want to talk about. This is on the tasks that require you to do planning and organizing, where you need to exercise your common sense and your judgment and your social skills. And again, a lot of this stuff goes back to the same outcomes for reducing or losing your ability to learn. It goes back to what I was saying about your memory. Same thing, same shit, right? If you can't remember anything, you can't learn. You can't think clearly if you can't relate what you're thinking about back to what you thought about 5 minutes ago. So all that organizing and planning and logical thinking become impossible because you can't string together a sequence of thoughts, right, for more than a few moments at a time. If you can't do that, how can you think? How can you plan long-term things? I'm sure there's strategies to do it. But if your thinking slows down enough as well because you're drinking, and it's not just that your thinking is stayed on this high level, but you just can't remember anything, your thinking is dumbified. So if your thinking is dumbified down, you're slowing your thinking down because of the alcohol abuse, and you can hardly remember what you did 5 minutes ago. How can you think at all? How is that thinking? So this is eventually what happens. The more you drink, even though the alcohol doesn't actually kill the brain cells. There's a myth that brain cells are killed. I don't think it does that, and there's a lot of evidence that it doesn't do that. And I want to do another video on this topic because I think it's an important topic that I can expand on a little bit. But what it does is it wears down those dendrites, and the dendrites are the ends of the brain cells. Yeah, so think about the hammering again, right? As an analogy, right? This is not something that I'm saying actually happens, but as that analogy, hammer on a nail, same nail, bang, 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 and it's spreading out the nail and it's damaging the end of the nail. So this is the alcohol wearing down the ends of the brain cells, and the key of this is that this is the key for passing the messages from one neuron to the other. And isn't that the same thing as what we're talking about? You know, practically speaking, that is your thinking. You know, if those messages are not passing across, then you're screwed. So again, I remember doing my 1 year video, which again, you can find on my channel, right? I thought about this for a couple of weeks before I did that 1 year video. I spent loads of time just thinking about things, writing things down. I was out walking and just thinking about what had happened, trying to analyze all the changes that had occurred over that year. I mean, I've made so many changes. I remember my sister saying to me at Christmas that year, she said, if there was one person in the family, and I come from a big family of 5 boys and 4 girls, if there was one of us that would have made all the changes that you've made in that year, and I become a vegan that first year, by the way, as well, or plant-based I'd become. I have to say that it was plant-based, or was on a plant-based diet, that it wouldn't have been me. It would have been somebody else. So that shows you how much I had changed and how much my life had changed. You know, how much my mind had altered, my thoughts, the way I was acting, the way I was talking, my habits in general, my life in general. And, you know, the conclusion that I came up to, and you can probably see it in that video, there's probably, I think it's about an hour, and I based it, I wrote my first book based around that as well, around that first year, and all the thinking that I did in that couple of weeks, or the few before that. What the conclusion that I came up with was that all the changes that had happened, all the vast improvements that had happened. And again, we're not just talking about direct consequences of stopping drinking alcohol here. We're talking about those second and third order consequences. You know, the things that happen because you stop drinking alcohol. And then you make a change here, and the thing that happens because you made that change, right? So you're talking about steps down the overall, you know, the rewards that you gain. And the overall impression that I had after all of that thought, all of that thinking, was that I was where I was now 1 year later, in comparison to where I was before I stopped, or, you know, that period before I stopped, was like I had done more in 1 year than I had in the previous year, that I felt like that. And that's no small thing, right? To feel that way about yourself, to feel that way about your life, and about how your life has improved. About how you see yourself when you look in the mirror. That's the most important thing, you know, to be able to stand in front of that mirror and look at yourself, and to be proud of not what you see physically, but what you see coming back from your eyes, from the changes that you've made in yourself. Like I say, no small thing. Imagine how that feels from a self-confidence perspective, from a self-belief perspective, from that point of view. You know, even if the ratio isn't exactly 1 to 10, right? I made more changes in 1 year than I had in the previous 10 years. And that's a sort of an out of the air calculation, but that's the way it felt. And it just gave me immense satisfaction, immense personal vindication as well, because you made a decision that, even though it was tough and you put yourself through this toughness, it gave you all of this. And because of that decision, you made this decision and that decision, right? And you went through the pain. And you said, fuck it, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to give in. So that's for that one, right? So the last two, I'm going to just scoot through them. I mean, the problems with balance, well, you know, that's going to be the least of your problems, isn't it? You know, and decreased initiative and spontaneity. Again, what would you expect with everything else that we've talked about before? Right. So I'm going to end it here, because this is turning into a long video. My final message to you would be that this is all avoidable. Right. This is the most scary thing to me of all the things, like I said at the beginning. Organ damage to some extent. You damage your liver, you damage your kidneys, you damage your heart to some extent. Right. That can all be lived with. You can live through that, and you can live with the whole experience of that. You know, you can do certain things that mitigate the damage. Well, from a personal point of view, for my living, my life in general is mental. It's you experience life not because you are here, but because of how you perceive it. You know, what comes into your mind. I love reading. You know, I love listening to clever people. I love talking to clever people. I love debating. I love to learn and to grow mentally. One of my passions in life, especially since stopping drinking alcohol, but all my life anyway, I just got in my way most of the time, was striving towards being the best possible version of myself that I could be. Trying to be a great example to my son, being a great example to my granddaughter, to my family, to my friends, leading by example in general. And I see myself in the future as a smart old fella, you know, not as a clever clogs, but somebody who has experience of life, and somebody who tells stories, who is not afraid to give good advice from a life experience, and not somebody who is lost inside their own head, right? Especially when I could have avoided it. And that's the biggest kick in the teeth that you can give yourself, is the fact that you could have avoided all of this, right? And I'm, you know, like, no matter how much my regrets are before I got to 46 and I stopped drinking alcohol, I have no regrets for that day that I stopped. And I'm so happy that I did. And that mitigates all the stuff that I did before, because I believe in myself that if I hadn't gone through that time, I wouldn't be where I am now. So all is good. And if you can look at your life that way, then, you know, even if you never get to the level where you can't remember what you did 5 minutes ago, to that level of brain damage, this is not a black and white thing, right? Either you're brain damaged or you're not. It's not along that scale, right? As soon as we as a society, as soon as the individual steps into that world of putting alcohol into their body, they have stepped onto that slippery slope of internal damage and life damage. And the damage to your brain is a guarantee, right? It's a certainty. It's not as if you don't, people, when they have the first drink, that they don't get any brain damage. They do. It's just how much brain damage they get, right? Each time you hit your brain with a shot of alcohol, you do a little bit of damage, a microscopic amount of damage. And in the beginning, your body can cope with that. And that's the draw. That's what draws us in. That's what Alan Carr called the pitcher plant, because you realize that you can do this, you can get this buzz, and then because you're young, you get over it. Your body can fix itself. But the more alcohol you put in, the more damage is caused, the less capable your body is of fixing the damage, and the more damage is going to be caused as a result of this. Now, I'm of the idea that in life, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. You can't change the past, but I can fucking well change the present. And hopefully through that change in the present, I can change and alter the future. I can influence the future. All right, so I'll leave it there for today. If you want to take a look at another video, we've got one here on wet brain syndrome. Take care of yourself, and I will speak to you again soon. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.